Refereeing is probably one of the toughest jobs in the world, making game-changing or season-defining decisions that, too, in a matter of seconds, can end up being extremely punishing. And let's not forget how referees are literally under the microscope all the time. Even the tiniest of errors can lead to millions of haters. Keep watching this video as we tell you about some of the most hated referees in sports. First up, a part-time smuggler? Apart from being the most hated referee in football, Brian Marino is probably the most hated man in Italy as well. To this day, he's widely criticized for some really controversial calls he's made during the 2002 knockout game between South Korea and Italy. If you're into football, you probably remember this match like it was yesterday. It felt like Marino had something personal against the Italians. He scratched off 3 legitimate goals and also gave a really dumb and questionable penalty to the Koreans. Oh, and he also sent off Francesco Totti for nothing. And if that wasn't enough, the Koreans played a super aggressive game. There was a lot of pushing and shoving, which all sort of went unnoticed by Marino. Believe it or not, some people actually call it the tragic tale of the most hated referee in the world. Want to know what we call it? A load of bull. It looked like Marino knew nothing about football. Some of the calls he made were so absurd that the Koreans were laughing right in front of him. Anyway, Francesco Totti and Italian manager Giovanni Trapattoni publicly called him out for making some really controversial calls, along with accusing him of foul play. Moreno had a really short-lived career lasting just 1 year after he retired in 2003 during an ongoing FIFA and national investigation. But by 2003, he was easily the most hated referee in all of football. Italian fans obviously hated him the most, but fans from all over the world labeled Moreno as a disgrace. Still, we sort of guessing he's always loved being a little adventurous in life. If being the most hated referee in football history wasn't enough, Moreno also thought it'd be pretty cool to smuggle drugs. He was arrested 7 years later for trying to smuggle heroin through the JFK airport. The top-hated referee was sentenced to about 2.5 years in jail. Next, a bit of gambling problem. While most referees have only been accused of foul play, Tim Donaghy was actually busted back in 2007 for being involved in a huge betting scandal. Tim was approached by some low-level mob associates to take part in a gambling scheme that would make him millions of dollars. Before taking the job as being the mob's inside boy, the disgraced NBA referee already had a really bad gambling problem along with a massive debt to his name. Tim figured he could pay his debt easily if he slipped some information to the mob, but his calls and tips became so accurate that he started charging about $5,000 for a single call. In some cases, he'd pass some crucial inside information to bookies for a whopping $30,000. But the real problem began when Tim started to bet on games himself. It's rumored that he started betting thousands of dollars in every game he refereed, and even started making calls which impacted the point spread. So how'd this guy get caught? The story is actually quite interesting. The FBI was investigating an organized crime group when they first stumbled upon Tim Donaghy. And they didn't just go arrest him right away or something. They actually watched him for a good couple of months and observed how he'd make sneaky calls to help tip the odds for a specific team. And guess what? That team would have millions of dollars placed on its bets. When it's all checked out and the FBI finally arrested Tim, he was thrown in jail for 11 months. His wife left him shortly after the scandal broke, and he's pretty much hated by basketball fans all over the world. But his hatred isn't just limited to the game of basketball. Since it was a gambling ring, he's known by sports fans all over the world. A man with universal haters. But are you really firm and fair? Boxing referee Joe Cortez has always described himself as firm and fair referee. And it wasn't like Joe was involved in gambling or fixing bouts or anything. He's actually one of the most hated referees in boxing because he just doesn't pay attention. Joe is at episodes inside the boxing ring when he's just watching the fight like a spectator. Now, we agree that's his job, but come on man, you're there to referee the fight, not watch it like a fan or something. And we can't blame him since he did take charge of guys like Mike Tyson and Roberto Duran. But his journey to hatred actually started when he took stewardship for the fight between Floyd Money Mayweather and Victor Ortiz. His first mistake came when failed to put both fighters back in the neutral corners. Like, that's literally the most basic thing you have to do as a boxing referee. Make sure both fighters are in the corners. If you're having trouble doing this, then don't freak out when everybody questions why you're even refereeing such a high-stakes fight. There's even a picture of him looking the other way when Mayweather caught Ortiz. Bruh, the whole stadium is watching the fight. What are you even looking at? Up next, but he apologized. As a referee, your job is to prevent players from getting hurt, especially when it's a rough sport like the NFL. But it really becomes difficult to defend yourself when you're throwing things right at a player's eye. And it's not like Jeff Triplett is hated for being a bad referee or something. He's hated for what happened to Cleveland's Orlando Brown. Triplett aggressively threw a penalty flag which was weighed down by ball bearings right at Orlando's eye. Yes, right at his eye, and as funny as it might sound, Brown was really hurt. But anyway, it wasn't like Jeff did it on purpose or something. It happens to everyone. You throw something and it hits someone in the face or in the eye, nothing but an accident, right? And even though Triplett apologized immediately, Brown did not let go and decided to sue the NFL for what he did. You're probably wondering though, how is he the one of the most hated refs in sports if all he did was make a mistake? Well, it was actually all the bad publicity that came with the accident. He was labeled as a careless referee who put players around him in danger. Kind of hard to believe, but he's still widely hated in the NFL. The NFL also had to apologize on Jeff's behalf when he made an error during the Giants versus Washington match. The NFL must have been really happy when he retired. Let's talk about Bennett Salvatore. Benny was a really interesting character. He wasn't just an NBA referee, he also owned and ran a very successful steakhouse. And by successful, we mean always in trouble with the police. During his time with the NBA, Bennett has been charged both for ticket fraud and false tax returns. When the police found out Benny hadn't been paying enough taxes, they sentenced him to a year of probation, 150 hours of community service, and a tiny $500 fine. But Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban probably wishes the police locked him away for much longer than just a year. As a referee, Bennett made some really controversial calls, which gave Miami a clear edge over the Mavericks. And you know what's really messed up about that? He actually agreed to making the wrong call, costing Dallas a crucial NBA Finals game. We get it though, mistakes can happen, but they're not really mistakes if you keep on repeating them. Salvatore also made some really terrible calls during the 2014 NBA playoffs. Wow, this guy really has a thing for making poor decisions in high-pressure games. Or maybe he's always thinking of ways to save tax on his steakhouse. Finally, consistency is key. Consistency is key when it comes to refereeing. You better be prepared to call out anyone for any foul on a consistent basis. But why does it seem like C.B. Buckner was consistent for being one of the worst referees in MLB history? Buckner was literally a nightmare to the league. He used to call batters out even before they made a move. He's been named the worst referee in MLB like 3 or 4 times, and that's mainly because of his aggressive nature. And being aggressive isn't wrong, it's actually a really good quality when it comes to refereeing. Like the ability to remain firm under pressure and make the right decision is what it's all about. But Buckner, on the other hand, would remain confident as ever after making some of the strangest calls we've ever seen. Now we understand why the only awards this guy wins is for being the most hated. That's it from our side, folks. So what do you think? Which referee do you hate the most? And did we forget to mention someone really unpopular? Let us know in the comments below. Remember, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more exciting content in the future. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you next time.